Hello everyone, welcome to International Business unit number 10. In unit number 10, we're going to be talking about global production and supply chain. So this is an interesting topic, mostly because we understand that when we do international business, not necessarily means that we're going to set or sell the products abroad. It could be also in terms of where we're going to set the production or where we can get the sources. There's multiple products that they can get the resources locally, but there's some other that really require from other places, and sometimes also that gets translated into the cost of the final product. So let's look at that today, right? So in this case, it is not easy to set. Already the supply chain management is a very complex process, and dealing with all the logistics of moving all the products and all the materials throughout the whole chain is already complex. And then if we add the international trade, that makes it even more complex. Firstly, because we will decide, let's say, for example, we heard that manufacturing in China is cheaper. Fantastic. But that means, what if I have the materials in Korea? I do the manufacturing in China, and then I return them back, and then I resell them abroad again. So it is a whole process, right? So getting the materials on time represents a lot of problems. So while it might look easier and better to establish our production there, we have to consider so many areas, right? And who's going to do it? Again, do we have the trust to someone to carry out our processes abroad? How much we can trust them? Whether they will have the production on time? We cannot oversee the quality. So there's too many implications, and that is where really becomes really, really complex. So again, like I said, it could be in terms of the production we can produce abroad, and that means also it can be in terms of the purchasing, where we get some of the supplies from abroad. Sometimes we really need to do it because we don't have locally the materials or the ingredients or the necessary tools, right? And that involves also the logistics. And here a little bit of a parenthesis is the logistics. The term the logistics was clinched through the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire used to move all its armies in a very efficient way, and then we have to understand that was one of the largest and most powerful armies, and the definition of logistics, really, they set it up. They plan everything fantastically to dominate so many countries, and of course later it got translated into business. How can we transport? How can we move things in a more efficient way? Okay, very good. So in this case, we need to understand the strategic objectives of the production and logistics. In this case, first of all, we want to reduce the cost. And here we talk about upstream and downstream supply chain. So it means what goes into the direction of the consumer and what goes into our direction, right, in terms of the production, or what goes back and forth, right? What materials go back, what information goes back and forth, etc. So mostly, like I said, we need to focus on our cost, but the second thing, second thing is less important, is the quality. The quality also plays a very important role, because not for having a cheap product means we can have a low quality product, right? So here we see just a diagram, and there's, like I said, there's a very, very good relationship between quality and cost. And companies think that by reducing the cost, I have to jeopardize my quality. And actually, it is not that way. When we improve quality, we reduce costs. Why? Because when we have good products, we sell more. When we have good products, quality products, we have less refunds. We have less work to do when we have the refunds, refurbishing all the products. That takes time and effort. So, like I said, it is better to focus on the quality to reduce cost than to reduce cost and put in jeopardy the quality. Okay, very good. So When we're talking about this, precisely when we're talking about the supply chain and manufacturing and the production of a certain product, we will immediately talk about total quality management or Six Sigma or Lean, right? Which are programs in which we commit to a complete we commit to complete quality throughout all of our processes. And that is fantastic. It sounds great. And we'll say everybody can do it, but not everybody can do it. It has a lot of rigor. It really entails a lot of discipline and commitment. Firstly, from the management to outline what they want to achieve out of this lean program and how they're going to do it, and have a very clear goal, which processes are going to be improved. And the same thing, the commitment from the employees to that quality, meaning we commit to have the best product in the market. So that is not easy. It requires a lot of changes, regulations, and sometimes we need external parties to really verify that we are committed to that. In this case, for example, we have the ISO. So this institution provides a lot of certifications. This is ISO 9000. It goes in terms of quality, but they do have a lot of ISOs in terms, like, for example, industrial waste, in terms of human resources. There's multiple ISOs. So in this case, we do have an effort, but we ask someone to come and check it for us, right? So in this case, when we are set up for international operations in terms of production or logistics, we should be able to accommodate demand for local responsiveness. That means how we can adapt to the local needs. Are we going to produce the products in-house in the country, or we bring them from abroad? If we bring them from abroad, what are the implications of it? How we're going to put the product? Simple things as, for example, when we have let's say, it's a country we chose for exporting a certain product. It is very hot and it's very humid. Let's say, for example, Singapore. And then you want to export some food. So you want to put some local flavor to some of the food that you're going to export to Singapore. But the problem is you also have to plan on all the packaging and all of that, because maybe it may not make it in the original packaging, may not make it from the original packaging. So we already start to change things and adapt to the local market. Maybe the packaging is going to be different. The way that is stored in the boxes is going to be different. So that may increase the price, and that already may change, right? The whole dynamic of how we were going to market the product. So that becomes very complex again, because we need to think of how to redesign the products in order to fit the local market. So in this case, when we think of countries where we want to produce, like I said, it's not just to the business, no? So we already looked at here the macro-environmental factors, no? The country, we already talked about that in previous units, so I'm going to go very quickly. Again, we look at the current economy, the politics, transportation, taxes, all those macro-environmental factors, because in the end, how can we get those products as quickly as we can out of that country? We also need to think of technological factors in terms of infrastructure. What kind of infrastructure or technology has that country? Do we need to bring it with us? And how we're going to measure, again, not how we're going to measure, how the technology can have an impact over our production, right? So here we're talking about mass customization and that, but that's already a little bit more of operations. We're really just looking here more as in the whole area of deciding why. In this case, technology plays a role, because if there's not much technology advanced in that country, let's say, for example, any technology goes into very simple things. It could be just the internet, it can be just electricity. If electricity is not good, maybe the production is cheaper there, but maybe we have a lot of power outages, and that represents a problem. So we're gonna think of that. Okay, very good. So the same thing when we set the production abroad, We also have to think of being flexible on the way that we're going to produce. Maybe we just want some components to be performed into that country because that is cheaper for us, but maybe 80% of the rest of the component is produced in-house in our country, right? Very good. So we also need to understand the production factors. In this case, we mostly will think, where is the production and where is the market? How close it is, or if it's not close, what are the means of communication or transportation to bring that product? So we analyze that. If we realize maybe it's far, but for us we can cover up because maybe there's a lot of transportation methods. Maybe it could be a port. Maybe we could think of setting a location for production near a port. That's the case, for example, of Kia. Kia is a very interesting case that they set their production near the port because they get many materials through the sea. So for them, rather than being inland, very inland in the middle of Korea, they just get from the port, they get the ships in there, they get all the material, then they quickly get it, and then of course they start to produce very, very quickly. Right? Very good. So we have to also understand that the production facilities in other country comes with a lot of issues, and then we have again this learning curve of understanding the multiple problems that arise when we set the production abroad, starting from simple things as, like I said, maybe the transportation, the infrastructure. Then we can go into cultural things as how the employees behave, etc. So that is some other areas that we need to consider too, because sometimes maybe in terms of taxation, in terms of country, the country in general works very well, but the employees in that country, they are not too efficient, and that's something that we will have to go and learn over time. So here we have the different types of production facilities. So let's talk about a little bit of them. So in this case, we have the offshore factory, which is producing finished goods abroad in another country. We have a source factory, which is primary purpose is to drive down costs in the global supply chain. So in this case, we look more of as a central production system. We have a server factory, which is it goes into specific region. Maybe we have certain hubs, maybe one hub for Asia, one hub for North America, etc. Okay? In the same thing, we have a contributor factory. Rather than a region, we go more into specific country. That is very similar, server and contributor factory. We have the outpost factory, which usually we gather intelligence from there. Maybe rather than having a large production, we understand more how the market works into that specific factory. And then we have a lead factory, which in this case, they are the ones who are... We have factories abroad, but we give them some certain independence and freedom to come with some certain innovations. This is the case of Sony. Sony does that very often, where they give them a lot of freedom to their subsidiaries and they let them work, and then of course those innovations come back to headquarters. So not everything goes from Japan, just produce for me in, let's say, Thailand, in Mexico, no. I tell you what to do, and on top of that, I'll give you the freedom to improve and do new processes, and then of course tell me what is working and what is not. Okay. So like I was saying just earlier, we have hidden costs of foreign locations, which is, again, there's things that we consider in the initial study, economic, political, taxes, all the regulations work well. But how about employees? Maybe we don't know how they work, the culture, etc. And it's more of a psychological thing that I need to address and I need to change it. So, and this one, we also have to think of strategic decisions in terms of how we're going to manufacture our products. So here we have what is called the make or buy decision. So in this case, when we're thinking of producing abroad, is will I produce it by myself? Maybe I will set up a factory in Indonesia, or there's already a factory in Indonesia and they're gonna do it for me, right? So both internationally, but one is I do it by myself, and the other one is I do it to someone else. Maybe why? Because they already have a factory that is very similar, produces similar products that I need, so I don't need to reinvest into setting up operations, analyzing the market. They already work there, so that it is. The problem is, of course, they may not be up to the standards that I need in terms of the quality of the products or so. Okay, so in this case, we talk about the global logistics. So the core activities, again, we have in the global logistics is moving those materials to certain places, countries, ports, etc. So we have how we're going to do the global distribution. So in this case, we're going to we have to think as a company, what is going to be our distribution strategy? We have a central hub, or we have satellites around where we send some of part of the production. Again, this depends on the size of the company and the strategy, and again, where the materials come from. So we have to think of that, and we have to think as well that, in terms of the distribution, we also have to think of how we're going to store it and where we're going to store it, all the production that we do. So that comes together, right? Another thing is, like I said earlier, is the packaging. Whenever we engage into international business, we have to understand how the packaging is going to impact the quality of the final product. And that is for the product itself. Secondarily, and most importantly, is how the package is going to be stored into the pallets and then into the containers. This is important because we're talking about size, and then you're going to need more containers or more pallets in order to transport, and that means more money and higher cost. So how are we going to do it? Perhaps, let's think of a strategy like IKEA, right? IKEA wants to put their products abroad, and they deassemble the whole product. Just there's pieces into a box where the consumer has to do it. So in this case, their strategy is very simple. Their pallet and their containerization plan is very efficient. That means little resources, they move a lot of products. And of course, they save a lot of money, and that saving of money is translated for the consumer. That means IKEA furniture is I wouldn't say half the price, but let's say half the price of what it is. And then, of course, that becomes much better, right, for the consumer. So again, this is part of planning the global logistics. So the logistics in terms of, again, into the packaging and then the transportation, where we move it, how we put it, taxation, how we make the payments. We already talked about all of this before. Okay. So in this, and also I'm going to go very quickly into the global purchasing. So in this case, we have levels of purchasing. First of all, like I said, domestic purchasing. We start only with local products. Yeah, maybe I find out that there's some components, not all the components, that I can bring from abroad, right? It's level 2. Then we have the supply chain management starts to really need a lot of components from abroad. That's a level 3. Then we have the level 4, which is we have different locations, and when we move the materials across all our different locations, right? And then we have the level 5, which is we have different locations. We transport a lot of materials and products throughout of them. And then, of course, we have some clusters or groups or areas of production. This is the case again. Kia is one of the experts on this case, no? Which is they have a lot of suppliers in the local markets where they produce abroad. Case of, for example, in Mexico, they have a big plant and there's so many suppliers located around them. Also Korean companies mostly, right? Does that mean they took the opportunity? So in this case, they have reached easily the level 5. Okay, so when we talk about efficient supply chain management, we need to understand 4 things, right? 4 important areas. So first of all, the role of just-in-time inventory, meaning if we want to have cost efficiency, we don't have extra inventory. And that means we have good suppliers. And if they come from abroad, that is even more complicated. How can I get my materials just in time when I have to clear transportation, taxation, etc., etc. Okay, and that goes together with the coordination. So that goes together. All of this is only possible through technology. If we have a very detailed information and analysis through computers, through systems, we have a very good business intelligence that allows us to really coordinate well. We have tons of information, and that means the supplier takes an amount of hours to produce our raw material. It takes X time to be transported, to clear customs, to come in here. I know where the product is all the time. So that means if I have the technology that lets me know where the product is all the time, that means I can turn on my machines for production when I know it's going to be arriving, rather than waiting for it to arrive and then set up all the machinery for production, right? So as much as this is also coordinated by technology, and of course enhanced through technology, we need to have good relationship with the suppliers and organizations, etc., in order for that to happen, because I want to make it also efficient in the communication with the suppliers and with the distributors, etc., of when I can provide all these products. And that's pretty much it. Okay, very good. So that's it for today. If you have any questions, you can let me know. Thank you so much. And then this is the last unit, and hopefully you learned very much. Thank you so much.